Now in this chapter, again, we're talking about risk and return. And this is another problem where they're introducing you to the concept of beta. Now, one of the good things about beta is that if you're talking about a portfolio of assets, a combination of assets in a portfolio, it's fairly easy to calculate the beta of the portfolio. If you're talking about the assets on the balance sheet, that is indeed your portfolio, and again, beta is calculated exactly the way that I'm going to show you here in just a moment. Now, one of the things we're going to see in this problem now, they're going to transition from portfolio A to portfolio B, and you're going to find that B is a riskier portfolio. Now, the reason you should change the weights in a portfolio and weight it more heavily to higher beta assets, which is what they end up doing, is because you would be expecting bigger returns from the market, the industry, however you want to kind of view that sort of benchmark. But again, this is the beta of a portfolio that they're showing you here. And again, something you should be aware of. And again, this is a measure of risk, of what's called systematic risk, and this is beta. Now this particular problem reads, Rose Berry is attempting to evaluate two possible portfolios which consist of the same 5 assets held in different proportions. She is particularly interested in using beta to compare the risk of the portfolios, so she has gathered the data shown in the following table. And so in the tables now, they give you the asset of each, the beta of each asset, all 5 assets. And then there's 2 different portfolios that she's considering here, A and B. It reads, calculate the betas for portfolios A and B. And the B part says, compare the risk of these portfolios to the market as well as to each other, and then comment on which portfolio is riskier. Now, the assets and their betas. Now, these stay the same now. These are the same assets, the same betas in both portfolios. And what you see, assets 1 through 5, asset 1 has a beta of 1.3, asset 2, 0.7, asset 3, 1.25, 4, 1.1, and 5 has a beta of 0.9. Now, in the first scenario now, the weights of the assets in the portfolio, that's these things here. So asset 1 makes up 10%, decimal equivalence 0.1. Asset 2, 30%, asset 3, 10, asset 4, 10, and asset 5, 10. And the weights should always sum to 1, or 100%. Now, one good thing about beta is that it's a relatively easy statistic to calculate for a portfolio of assets. And the beta of a portfolio of assets is simply a weighted average beta. You would multiply each asset's beta by the weight it makes up of the portfolio, sum those products, and you get the beta of the portfolio. So 1.3 times 0.1 is 0.130. 0.7 times 0.3, 0.21, so on and so forth. You sum the products, these things here, and this is the beta of the asset, the portfolio in this case, 0.935. So this particular portfolio, given its assets and the betas of those assets, this portfolio is taking on 93.5% of the risk of the market. So what return should you expect? Well, you should expect 93.5% of the market return. So again, this is how you calculate the beta of a portfolio, and in this case, this would be a defensive portfolio. That is, it has a beta less than 1. In the B part now, same 5 assets, you have the same beta for all the assets, but you're changing the weights in the portfolio. And as you stand back and look at what they're doing in this particular problem now, they're increasing the weights of all the more aggressive stocks, the stocks with betas greater than 1, and they're reducing the weights of the defensive stocks, the stocks that have a beta less than 1. Well, if you're moving to riskier stocks and out of less risky stocks, so what's that going to do? Well, it's going to increase the overall risk of the portfolio. And indeed, you see that's what happens here. So to calculate this new beta, same thing as we did before, you multiply the beta of each asset times the weight that each asset makes up of the portfolio. You sum those products, and that indeed is the beta of the portfolio. In this case, 1.11. So what you see here is what someone would want to do if they expected the market to increase. If you're bullish on the market, if you think things are going to go great for your industry and for your business, then you want to move out of the less risky assets and into the more risky assets. In this case, that's what they're doing here. That's what this portfolio is offering to you, because they're moving out of the low beta assets and into the high beta assets. The result of that now is that portfolio B takes on 111% of the risk of the market, whereas portfolio A only took on 93.5% of the risk of the market. So clearly, what do you say about portfolio B? It's a riskier portfolio, and if they're right and the market goes up, this portfolio should give you much more return.